Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Steam swirled around me as the water ran down my back, the scent of vanilla body wash filling the small bathroom. The day had been long, and this moment, warm, quiet, and private, was my only escape. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the water rinse away the thoughts crowding my mind. Then, I heard it, a faint sound behind the shower curtain. I froze. Before I could turn, the curtain shifted slightly, and a voice stumbled out, half apologetic, half startled. "Oh, I didn't know you were in here." It was him. My stepson stood there, eyes wide, droplets of water clinging to his hair as if he'd just come from the rain. His hand gripped the edge of the curtain, frozen in that awkward second between walking out or staying put. My heart thudded in my chest, so loud I was sure he could hear it. The air between us changed. It wasn't just surprise anymore, it was tension. A kind of heat that had nothing to do with the shower. "Could you, maybe, close the door?" I managed to say, my voice unsteady but soft. He nodded, but didn't move right away. His gaze flickered, once, just once, before he looked away too quickly. That small hesitation sent a rush through me I couldn't explain. It wasn't supposed to feel like this, not confusion, not curiosity, not that strange awareness of how close we suddenly were. I stepped back, trying to steady my breath. "You should go," I whispered, more to myself than to him. But before he turned, his hand brushed against mine, a fleeting, accidental touch that felt anything but accidental. The contact sent a spark straight through me, sharp and undeniable. He blinked, almost as if the world had slowed for a heartbeat. "Sorry," he murmured, his tone low and uncertain. And then he stepped out, leaving the air thick, heavy, and full of unanswered questions. I stood there, the sound of the running water masking the rhythm of my pulse. My mind raced. Did he really walk in by mistake, or was it something else entirely? Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. After that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened, or rather, what almost happened. Every time I passed him in the hallway, every time our eyes met over the breakfast table, there was a flicker of something unspoken. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't innocent either. When his father, my husband, Daniel, came home late from work that night, the house felt quieter than usual. The distance between us had been growing for months, maybe years. We barely talked beyond small routines, dinner, bills, work. His eyes no longer lingered when I spoke, and his goodnight kisses had turned into soft, absent gestures. I told myself it was normal. Love changes, right? But somewhere deep down, I missed being seen. That's what made the moment in the bathroom so impossible to ignore. For the first time in a long while, someone noticed me. The next day, I was in the kitchen making coffee when he walked in. His hair was messy, his voice still heavy with sleep. "Morning," he said quietly. "Morning," I replied, my tone careful. He reached for a mug, our hands brushed again. Just like before, the contact was brief, accidental, yet it sent a familiar warmth through my chest. We both froze for half a second before he gave a small, nervous laugh. "Guess I keep bumping into you lately." I smiled faintly, looking down. "So it seems." There it was again, that charged silence. Neither of us moved away, but neither dared to say what we were really thinking. Daniel's footsteps suddenly echoed down the hall, breaking whatever spell had formed. I quickly pulled my hand back and busied myself with the coffee pot. His son stepped away, pretending to look for the sugar. But when Daniel entered the kitchen, his eyes flicked between us, brief, unreadable, before he kissed my cheek and grabbed his briefcase. After he left, the quiet returned. The tension between me and his son lingered like the aroma of fresh coffee, impossible to ignore. Later that week, I found myself thinking about how our family had fallen into a rhythm of silence. Daniel was always traveling for work, and the house felt emptier every day. Sometimes his son would stay up late, sitting on the porch, earphones in, staring into the night. One evening, I joined him. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked softly. He looked up, his eyes reflecting the porch light. "No, just thinking." "About what?" He hesitated. "About things that probably shouldn't matter." I felt the weight behind his words. I didn't ask more. But as the night breeze brushed past us, I realized it wasn't just him who was feeling lost. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It started with glances that lasted a little too long, and silences that said more than words ever could. Daniel was away again for the week, and the house had that familiar, hollow quiet. I tried to keep myself busy, folding laundry, watering plants, pretending that everything was ordinary. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Every small sound seemed to draw my attention: footsteps in the hall, the soft hum of his music from the next room, even the way he laughed under his breath when he thought no one was listening. That evening, I walked past his room and noticed the door slightly open. He was inside, sketching by the window, headphones around his neck. His face was lit by the golden sunset, calm, unaware of how hard it was for me to breathe. He looked up, catching me watching. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, though my voice felt caught in my throat. "Just checking if you've eaten." "Not yet," he said, standing. "You can join me, if you want." The offer was innocent. The way he said it wasn't. Dinner was quiet, tense in a way that wasn't uncomfortable, just charged. When he complimented my cooking, his tone had a warmth that made my chest tighten. Then he said something that almost made me drop my fork. "Dad's lucky," he murmured, almost to himself. "He doesn't even realize it." I froze. The words hung in the air: dangerous, beautiful, wrong. I looked at him, and for a heartbeat too long, I didn't look away. Later, I found him on the porch again, this time in the rain's soft drizzle. He was sitting there, soaked, lost in thought. I brought him a towel, my hand brushing against his cheek as I handed it over. He didn't move, just looked up at me, eyes searching, conflicted. "Sometimes," he whispered, "it's hard to pretend we don't feel things." My pulse raced. The air between us was alive, thunder rumbling somewhere far away, rain glistening on his skin, the world narrowing to just us. I wanted to speak, to stop whatever this was before it went too far. But all that came out was a shaky breath. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The rain had stopped, but the night hadn't let go of its quiet tension. The house was wrapped in darkness, the only light spilling softly from the kitchen, where I stood, unable to sleep. My mind replayed everything: the glances, the words, the touches that lingered too long. I didn't hear him come in until his voice broke the silence. "You're up late again." I turned, startled. He stood by the doorway, shirt slightly damp, hair messy, vulnerable and impossibly close. "I couldn't sleep," I said softly. He stepped closer, the floor creaking beneath his feet. "Neither could I." Something about the way he said it made the air heavier. We both stood there, too close, too aware. The faint hum of the refrigerator filled the quiet between us, each second stretching thinner, tighter. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with a glass of water, but my hand trembled slightly. I felt him behind me before I saw him, his presence warm, steady, impossible to ignore. My heartbeat quickened. "You don't have to keep pretending," he said quietly. "I know you feel it too." His words hung there, dangerous, intimate. I wanted to deny it, to say something that would stop this from spiraling further. But when I finally turned around, his eyes met mine, and all the practiced restraint I'd built began to crumble. "It's not that simple," I whispered. "Maybe it is," he said, his voice low, sincere. "Maybe we're both just too afraid to admit what's real." The air was electric, his nearness, the rhythm of his breathing, the faint scent of rain still clinging to him. My pulse thundered in my ears. He took one small step closer, just enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from him. My hand tightened around the glass until I set it down, slowly, deliberately. We stood there, inches apart, eyes locked, the world outside silent and still. Then came the sound, the jingle of keys. Daniel's car pulling into the driveway. I froze. He stepped back instantly, guilt flashing across his face. The lights from the car cut through the window, slicing through the fragile, unspoken moment we'd just shared. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The air in the kitchen still carried the echo of that moment, the closeness, the breath that almost became a confession. But the sound of Daniel's car outside had broken the spell, snapping everything back into reality. I quickly turned off the light, heart pounding, as his son slipped out the back door. By the time Daniel stepped inside, the air smelled only of rain and tension. "Couldn't sleep again?" he asked, setting his keys down. I forced a smile. "Just got up for some water." He nodded absently, removing his jacket. "You've been distant lately." The words cut deeper than I expected. "Maybe we both have," I replied, unable to meet his eyes. He sighed and left the room, the weight of unspoken truths pressing between us. Upstairs, I sat in bed, the walls closing in with quiet thoughts. What was happening to me? How did a simple accident, a shower, a glance, unravel years of silence I'd been living with? The next morning, Daniel left early for work again. I tried to shake off the memory of last night, but when I stepped outside, he was there, his son, sitting by the garden steps, wet hair glinting in the morning sun. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were restless. I hesitated, then nodded. He took a deep breath. "I didn't mean for things to get confusing. But I can't keep pretending I don't care about you." His words hit me like a storm. "You shouldn't say that," I whispered, though my voice trembled more with emotion than control. "I know," he said, stepping closer, his tone breaking. "But you deserve more than what he gives you. You deserve someone who actually sees you." That last sentence made my throat tighten. For years, I'd buried the loneliness under responsibility, pretending that love simply faded with time. But now, someone had noticed. Someone had said it out loud. Before I could answer, Daniel's voice cut through the air behind us. "What's going on here?" I turned, my heart nearly stopping. He was standing at the gate, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. His son stepped back immediately. "It's not what it looks like," he said quickly, but his voice cracked under the pressure. Daniel's gaze moved between us, the tension, the silence, the truth that needed no explanation. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The world felt like it had stopped spinning. He looked at me, really looked, for the first time in months. "How long has this been going on?" Tears welled in my eyes, not from guilt, but from the ache of everything left unsaid. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The silence that followed Daniel's question was louder than any scream could have been. The rain had started again, soft at first, then heavier, washing the air clean but doing nothing to ease the tension between us. His son stood frozen beside me, his face pale, guilt written in every line. "Answer me," Daniel demanded, his voice breaking the stillness. I swallowed hard. It's not what you think, I said, though even I wasn't sure what I meant anymore. Nothing happened. Nothing? His tone cracked with disbelief. You expect me to believe that after what I just saw? His son stepped forward, shaking his head. Dad, please. It's my fault. I crossed the line. She didn't stop, I cut in sharply, my voice trembling. Don't protect me. Daniel looked between us, anger giving way to something deeper, hurt. I trusted both of you, he said quietly, as if the words themselves pained him. And this is what it comes to? Tears burned in my eyes. You stopped seeing me a long time ago, I whispered. We stopped being us long before this moment ever happened. He stared at me, eyes glistening. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain beat against the roof, the sound of it merging with the unspoken heartbreak between us. Finally, Daniel turned away. I need time, he said. Both of you, out of my sight. His son dropped his gaze, jaw clenched, as if holding back everything he wanted to say. Without a word, he turned and walked toward the gate, his figure slowly disappearing into the rain. I stayed there, the garden around me blurred by tears. The weight of what I'd done, and what I hadn't, pressed down until I could barely stand. That night, the house felt emptier than ever. Every creak of the floor, every distant thunderclap seemed to echo with guilt. Daniel didn't come home. His absence was its own answer. By morning, I found a note on the table, not angry, just final. I need space to think. Don't contact me. I sat there for hours, staring at those words until the paper blurred. I thought of the young man who had seen me, not as a wife, not as someone fading into the background, but as a woman who still had pieces of herself left to feel. And though what we shared had been brief, wrong, and tangled in confusion, it had awakened something I thought was gone forever. Now, all that was left was the ache, the consequence of truth too long ignored. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Days turned into weeks, and the silence in the house became unbearable. Daniel hadn't called, and I had stopped waiting by the phone. Each morning felt heavier, yet somewhere deep inside, I knew the storm had passed, leaving only truth behind. One afternoon, I was watering the plants when I saw a figure by the gate. The rain had just stopped, and soft sunlight broke through the clouds, turning the air golden. It was him, Daniel's son. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he spoke, voice quiet but full of emotion. I came to say goodbye. My heart ached at those words. Where will you go? I'm leaving for school out of town, he said, eyes glinting with both sadness and strength. Dad thinks it's best, for everyone. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Maybe he's right. He stepped closer, holding my gaze. I just wanted you to know. I never meant to cause trouble. You didn't deserve the blame. I smiled faintly, tears threatening. Maybe it had to happen, so we could all see the truth about ourselves. For a moment, time stood still. The air was soft, the world quiet except for the chirping of birds after the rain. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, a gesture so gentle it felt like forgiveness itself. I'll miss you, he whispered. You'll do great things, I replied, my voice trembling. Just promise me one thing, never lose that honesty in your heart. He nodded, eyes glistening. And you, don't stop living. I laughed softly, the sound breaking through the heaviness. I think I finally remembered how. He smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't filled with tension, just warmth. A goodbye that didn't hurt as much as it healed. As he turned to leave, Daniel's car pulled up on the street. He stepped out, looking between us, his expression unreadable. The young man gave a respectful nod before walking away into the light. Daniel approached slowly, rainwater glistening on his jacket. "You've been crying," he said gently. "Maybe it's what I needed," I replied. He sighed, his eyes softening. "I've done a lot of thinking. About us. About how far apart we drifted." I looked up at him, heart unsteady. "And?" He stepped closer, his voice quiet but sure. "I don't want to lose what we had, not if there's still something worth saving." Tears spilled freely now, but they weren't from pain. "Then let's start again," I whispered. Daniel took my hand, warm, firm, real, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like coming home.